what I know. Better than the rest, just watch me grow. Put me to the test and watch me go. This is my quest, I'ma make it known. They call me obsessive, oh I know. Call me selective with my notes. Call me aggressive with my flow. Call me offensive even though Joe, I ain't gonna lie, life's tough. Try to get by, life's rough. Try to do it right.
Yeehaw, soldiers, it's your boy the Anime Sage coming to another video. And, oh boy, here we go. This is the Goodnight Punpun review. I have to talk about this manga because I just finished it, and I wanted to give you guys my perspective, as I think it's a really great work of art. Now, let me just first start off by saying this. I feel like there are two requirements for you to read this manga. One, you probably could be a little bit older to appreciate this, probably around adult age, because the Punpun, it tackles you going from elementary school all the way up to adulthood, and as you go through, some of the adult stuff that happens in Punpun, well, you'll find if you read it. And then the second thing is that you probably shouldn't read this if you are depressed. And by that I mean, that type of stuff. Because if you are depressed, well, this manga is not going to be for you, because a lot of sad stuff happens in this manga. So, yeah. And also, one thing, spoiler warning, because I'm going to be talking about certain events that happen in this manga. And I'm going to talk about the themes that they can also represent, and also talk about, the manga in general, and what are my overall thoughts about it. So, yeah, let's begin. First off, let me first talk about Punpun. Punpun, in the beginning story, essentially had an innocent mindset, because, he was a kid. He was, in elementary school, he had a nice day, and he ended up falling in love with a girl named Aiko, who, was a recent transfer and stuff like that. And, Punpun had that level of attraction for her, starting from elementary school and going onwards. It was an attraction that continued, but it would kind of be, part of his destruction. Because he wanted to chase a form of happiness that he had before his life fell apart. And what I mean by that with Punpun, well, with Punpun, he experienced a broken home, because his mother, didn't really like his father too much. And with a bit of a, how do I say this, bit of a physical assault type stuff, starts with domestics, and a bit of a domestic situation. It kind of caused the father to essentially, be divorced, and he can't even step onto, the premise to see his son, which that kind of sucks. You would immediately feel, a bit of sympathy for the father. But at the same time, if you, at that point knew that, well, he attacked the mother and stuff like that, she was, knocked down on the floor and stuff like that, unless you had an inkling that there was something more to the story, you kind of side with, Miss Onodera, but you also feel bad that, a man being separated from his child, and you would also probably feel like, well, Punpun growing up in a bit more of a home without his father and stuff like that isn't necessarily the greatest, especially when you had an entire panel where his father was actually trying to help him out a little bit with love and stuff like that, and you kind of felt, well, maybe it's not that bad, but he definitely has some issues. Well, unfortunately, as you go back through the story, that turns out to be a really, really, sad, misunderstanding about this character, because besides one moment in the manga where Punpun's father, or I guess Punyama, wanted to take Punpun with him to live with him and stuff like that, which isn't necessarily the most realistic thing, because Punpun's been in an environment for a long time, and I don't think he really recognized his father as much, and because of how much he's developed and stuff like that, there's just not that connection that he had with all the stuff that happened in his life. Well, it's kind of ended up him declining that offer, especially with the life that he potentially has to live. And then you cut back to him as you go later into the manga, and the dude doesn't even care about him. And the sad part is that you realize that this guy is a really piece of crap as a father. Oh my god. The fact that Punpun's father doesn't know anything about him is just sad. The only thing that, at the end of the day, you could at least say that Yuichi, in a way, kind of understood him, and at times, but I don't feel like anyone in that family really understood anything about Punpun and what he actually liked, besides Yuichi. In fact, Yuichi was the guy who gave him his little thing to call upon God and stuff like that. But unfortunately, Yuichi has his own demons to deal with as well. And then but back to Punyama. Punyama, just when he was asked about is being the father. He just like didn't know anything, and he didn't even like cross his mind. Like no one amongst his group knew who Punpun was. They thought that he was at first, Sachi, one of the females in the story, was, Punpun's girlfriend, but like none of them knew who his son was. Are you serious right now? And that's one thing that I can't really like vibe with at all, because not only is like this dude completely like doesn't seem, hasn't really kept in contact with Punpun a while afterwards when he tried to, get him to live with him, and you now know that he doesn't even talk about him as much. He's happier, which is fucked up, because he doesn't even know what's going on with his own son. Normal fathers in a situation would at least make sure their sons would be okay and stuff like that, and care for them and stuff like that. But it seems like this dude doesn't care anymore. And to top it off, there probably are hints that he had like, some, potential gambling issues and stuff like that, which, yikes. But who knows what. But there could be some other stuff, but I believe the scene he was talking about that he went from was like from when he was trying to say, and it was like, I would probably say it's from the slots, so yeah. But another aspect of this is of course the mother, and she's no angel in this one either, because this woman specifically states a couple times that, all the problems that Punpun, because of Punpun was born, well, Miss Onodera, or again Punpun's mother, all the problems are because of him. And imagine saying that to a elementary school student, to middle school student. Like, are you kidding me? And that's something that you don't want to say. And she even almost thought about going to the lake with Punpun and do commit seppuku and stuff like that. So yeah, that's not a great situation. And when and then when you look further into the story, you do see her at least do something good, which was send letters acting as Punpun's father, because she couldn't get in contact with Punyama, so she took upon herself. And you know what? That's a good deed. I can at least appreciate that. But she should have done more. And you know what? She actually did want to desire more when she was talking with Harumi. But unfortunately, it was too late, because she ended up getting cancer! And died! Are you serious? And of course, Punpun didn't have sympathy for him. And now, you would have, in normal situations, you would say, well, Punpun should feel bad. But when you consider the fact that the mother did all that to Punpun as a child, with those specific moments about like blaming all her issues on him, and like didn't like had this like very tumultuous thing, and didn't like bother to contact with, to at least connect with him. Like even Miss Punpun's mother didn't know anything about him either. That's real, and like you have to like think these are the most incompetent parents of all time. Or like the worst parents of all time in terms. Well, actually, there are worse out there, but in terms of like of a real worst thing, these parents are horrible. They're horrible. But that's just. I guess that's just me. Then I go to Midori, who becomes Punpun's aunt in the story, and I hate her because while Punpun was 15 and she was 27 or something like that, how do I say this so I don't get YouTube after me and stuff like that? Let's say forcefully does the deed with him, or like takes advantage of his younger age and stuff like that. You kind of get what I'm saying if you're not fully understanding that. It's just like whatever. But this woman took advantage of this dude and completely wrecked him. And going forward, this dude has a messed up view about what the deed is. I can't say those words because I'll get demonetized, but the deed, between man and woman or whoever, what I'm saying, like, is the deed and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. And he has this like weird view about it and doesn't really want to bother to have that that connection when it comes to when he tried to like date this one girl, he tried to forcefully do the same action that he did, that came upon him, and it just ruins the rest of his life. If that one event hadn't really happened to him, who knows what would have happened from there. Like, he probably would have still worked hard and stuff like that, but he probably wouldn't have had to, but he probably would have been and he probably would have had a lot more, be better mentally. Then I go into Aiko. Now, Aiko had like this one monologue about the ideal partner for her would be someone who's depressed, because she could then fill that void as someone who could make that person happy. And what do you know? Later into the story, Punpun's depressed, and here we go. And then you had like her wanting actually being the one who murdered her mother. That is something that happened in the story, and a thematic theme here. Like you kind of see Aiko's character in motion here, because she does feel some form of regret there. Not only because maybe not fully because she murdered the mother, but because Punpun feels like he has that guilt that he was the one who killed her when Punpun probably didn't do anything wrong. And she admits it several times, and you hear a news station that says that there were multiple stab wounds, so she wasn't lying. And both of them would, as the relationship went forward, were very toxic to each other. There's a scene where Punpun wanted her to put a fork through his eye, so yeah. But she ended up actually doing it, but not all the way, so that the eye didn't come out. And Punpun just like chastised her for this, like, you gotta do the full way, no half measures or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I can't really fully say this stuff, but like, you know. And to me, that's just like speaks to like how the relationship kind of evolves into a lot of toxicity. And they do have their highs. Like Punpun had, you know, Aiko was about to get a job and Punpun unfortunately made the mistake of putting Aiko's name in terms of the ID, and now they gotta keep moving, because right now they're on the hunt and stuff like that, especially since they discovered the body. And you know, right now, if there are a lot of stuff that kind of makes you in a story just like question, what if this didn't happen in Punpun's life? What if this didn't happen in Punpun's life? Because there were like a lot of scenarios you can look at. Because when he got back with Aiko, his life kind of spiraled further down, and it kind of nearly cost him his life. But that was probably at a point where he still had that, you know, depression aspect going on. You also could point out to him, you know, not having the deed forced onto him, you know, the forceful deeding or whatever. I can't really say the actual word because, yeah, YouTube doesn't like that. But even if it happened to him, who knows what could have happened with his life. You also could have had, what if his mother was better to him? What if his father was better to him? What if his uncle was more there for him and stuff like that? Like you just kind of get mad at the people who are not in Punpun's life. His mother only resolves to become a better parent when, you know, around like after her latest stint in the hospital, and then she gets cancer. His father didn't do anything, so yeah. And then of course you had Yoichi and stuff like that get together with the person who, you know, did the forceful deal with the cut. Yeah, I didn't even get to that part. That was just like, I you know what, I don't even know what to say about that, because I'm just gonna be honest. If I found out that my girl did the deed with my nephew, I don't know how I would feel about that, but there might be one more body in the grave. Like, I'm just like being serious right now, because that's just horrific. But you know, like, it's just whatever. Then you got like, it's just like a lot of the running themes is like the real world is it's really, you know, destructive and bad and stuff like that, to the point. And also you have one bad thing that happens in your life and just goes down and down and down from there. You had people like Aiko, who the story focused on for a little bit. She kind of just spiraled into that, you know, bit of depression spiral herself. And even when she found that person that she could at least, you know, make happy, she couldn't do anything about it, and she ended up you know, committing seppuku. It's like you had Punpun, who had his father separate from him, and then just like his life just went downhill from there, and it was trying to recapture happiness, but never really, you know, did it. And the ending is just left up into interpretation of whether or not you think that Punpun is happy, or whether you think he's just, you know, forced to live. It's kind of in that little bit of gray in between, because it's up to interpretation. He either is happy, you know, might be happy with his life, or he's very sad, but, you know, in either scenario, he's forced to live. Because all Punpun wanted to do was just die. Or just, like, and yeah, because he just, like, wasn't satisfied with himself. Essentially, I mean, Punpun at least does have a supporting cast of people who do care about him in a way, but it's just, like, he's just forced to live. And that's just dark in a way, you know? Then you had, like, you know, you had his former elementary school classmates in Seki and Shimizu, they had their lives just go downhill, which the story just focused on, because Shimizu kind of represents innocence still protected, but that's a very bad thing because you're not really ready to experience the full realities of the world, and you're not willing to accept them. And then Seki was like, well, I'm just going going off on my own way. I don't want high school. It's not for me and stuff like that. And, in his own way, it kind of like spiraled a little bit at times, but, he probably had maybe one of the more stable lives considering where he came from, where his father, kind of the business, not great in a great position, and I believe he's also had some alcohol issues, so yeah. And this story just tackles so many real world themes, and it just makes you relate to the characters a lot. You kind of have an attachment to these characters, and it kind of puts you in the shoes of their perspectives and stuff like that pretty well. You can agree or disagree with their actions, but there's a reason why they think a certain way and why they act a certain way. Like, if you didn't know what Punpun went through, for the story of the manga, you would have thought, well, he's just a very depressed person. But when you actually put his entire life together, you're like, wow. And you actually and Punpun as a character is just meant to be, a representation of what is going on in your life and stuff like that. It's putting your life into perspective and stuff like that, and putting in Punpun's shoes, and you're essentially there for the ride. So you're trying to see Punpun's actions for what they are. And you would probably try to protect your girl if her mother was trying to kill you and her, with the knife. But who, by the way, I hate that mother, by the way. She literally just beat Aiko bad. If you saw a couple panels from the manga, she had all these bruises on her back, and it's just wow. But overall, I love/hate this manga. Simply because of the fact that it's a great manga from a writing perspective, it's really good. But from the actual story content itself, it's sad to the point where I don't want to go for the journey. Even if you could make the argument that Punpun had, a better ending and stuff like that, and he's happy now, I don't want to see the journey just unfold again as I see this character evolve and just go for the stages of depression. I don't want to see that again. And I actually want to go for more in-depth analysis on Punpun's character and stuff like that, but I'll say that for later. But I feel with what way I can conclude this is look at the bit of ending, and it just shows that it's a cycle. The same stuff that Punpun was worried about the deed, having a normal life and stuff like that. And of course, humans going extinct, which is one of the big passages about that Aiko talked about, where you were well, humanity's going to go extinct one day. Those are same things that are going to happen. You also had this kid that immediately again fell in love, looked at this girl, and the cycle again continues. And at the end of the day, it just shows that no matter what, you're going to have a Shimizu, you're going to have a Seki, you're going to have an Aiko, you're going to have a Punpun. They're not unique in any way. They're not something that you're going to come across once in a lifetime. They're going to happen, and they're going to come into the world. It's just how the world works. Does it suck? Yes, it really does. And I honestly wish that certain stuff didn't happen to those characters and stuff like that, nor to other characters moving forward. But it just happens. And I feel that's about it I want to cover for this. I mean, I liked how there was also there are times when they're talking about manga instead of manga and stuff like that. There was Sachi and that relationship going on, but Punpun couldn't really fully do D and stuff like that. It was pretty interesting to see during the later parts of the manga, the concept art for her next story and stuff like that was drawn by Mimura, and it was Punpun. Pretty crazy when they dueled that and stuff like that, because we've been so used to seeing that ourselves for the majority of the series and stuff like that, and there's new beginning for that character. And also had Yuichi just create another Punpun as he bred life into the world and stuff like that. It's and then you just have this disdain for the characters because they don't care for Punpun, they don't have the care for the characters, and you just feel bad that these characters just go for stuff like that. Overall, great manga, but I'm not picking up again. I don't want to read that again. At all. But that's about it for this review. Let me know what you thought about this, and also I recommend reading this manga and stuff like that if you've read it, and comment down below. And don't watch this video if you don't want spoilers or stuff like that. But overall, yeah, this has been your boy, the Anime Sage. Sign out. Peace. Yorta. Stephanie Shea, close us out. Bye bye. Peace.
Hi, this is Stephanie Shea, voice actress for Sailor Moon, Hinata, Orihime, and you are watching Anime Sage.